am so thrilled that you are here today. We have some amazing professionals in the room, total rock stars that were willing to drive to Cache Valley this beautiful day and be with us. And we have some amazing students in the room. So I can't wait for the energy, the discussion, the excitement. So my name is Kristen Allred. I am the director of She's Daring Mighty Things. And I have just completed my first year at the Huntsman School of Business, and it has been such a blast. I have literally loved it. I tell my husband, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, what marvelous thing is going to happen today? Like that happens every single day for me. And it happens because of all of you. It's because we have the best faculty, staff, students, and alumni. We really do. The Huntsman School of Business is like the Magic Kingdom. Disney says it is. We really are, actually. So this is a place where magic happens. And I get to work particularly with amazing women students. So our women are not only coming in greater numbers, but they're competing
throughout the day
in so many different places. And they are joining internships and finding rewarding careers like never before. So the Huntsman School is on the rise, and our students are doing things that are remarkable. So it is a pleasure always for me to interact with all of you. So this year, we have the privilege of listening to Sui Lang Panoke from Zions Bank. She's our keynote today, and she's going to be talking about leadership. All of us need to learn how to be better leaders and bringing good influence to those around us. And she's going to talk about listening, learning, and leading. So get excited for her remarks. I also wanted to give a very brief history of She's Daring Mighty Things so that you can understand why we started, where we started. So back in 2018, we had a single event, this event, and we had a She's Daring Mighty Things Summit. But over the course of the few years and COVID-19, we realized we need more engagement. We need to do things for our students that really engage them, educate them, and empower them. And it can't just be a single event where you go, woo, and then nothing. So we created an initiative that we work all year long to find the opportunities that you need to really succeed. So that's what this is. You are part of a movement that we are trying to make the Huntsman School of Business the place to be if you're a woman, whether it's faculty, staff, student, or alumnus. That this is where you want to be because we're going to treat you well, we're going to give you opportunities, we're going to help you do exactly what you want to do. So I'm so glad that you have joined us today. It is now my pleasure to introduce Adrienne Matthews. She is the president of our Women in Business Association. She's going to talk a little bit about her story, and she's going to introduce our keynote speaker, Sui Lang Panoke. Adrienne.
let's bump our
We've got a special guest somewhere. I know. I am so excited to be here today. Thank you, Kristen, for introducing me.
sort of
I am so excited to be here, and I am just so impressed at Kristen and everything that she has made of She's Daring Mighty Things, especially in the past year. She has made it absolutely amazing. I mean, look at the room today. We've got 20 professionals and a ton of students that are just going to enjoy today, so I'm super excited. So I will be introducing Sui Lang Panoke, and she is the Senior Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Zions Bank. She is a visionary leader and social entrepreneur with a passion for empowering today's leaders to rethink, create, and innovate. She is responsible for directing the bank's strategic vision to champion diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout the organization and build economic inclusion locally, nationally, and across the industry. Her theme for the summit is leadership. I listen, I learn, and I lead. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Sui Lang Panoke.
Aloha. Oh my gosh, Robin. Hello. Wow, what an amazing space to be in. It is truly an honor to be here with all of you here today. I just want to start with some acknowledgments. Thank you so much, Kristen and President Anderson, for the invitation to speak to all of you here today. I wanted to share, and thank you to all the students who showed up and who are already leading in business and in our community. We look forward to welcoming you into Utah's business community if that is where you choose to build your career. And I just see so many great futures here and seeds being planted and cultivated in this very room. I also wanted to share some connections that I have to Utah State University. As I was driving up here, I got a little lost, and I found myself in some dorm parking lot. Oh my gosh, I was a high school cheerleader for Cottonwood High School, and we came up here for a cheer camp. And I remember the routine that we learned. It was like Dare to Dream, and here I am now living my dream. Thank you for the introduction, lovely introduction. I work at Zions Bank, and I describe it as my dream job. I now have my dream boss, and I'm doing the work that I've always dreamed of. And so this can be you too. Not that I'm encouraging you to be just like me, but things can work out, and we are all here to support you along your journey. My brother is also an alumni of Utah State University. I remember coming up here. He was a member of Sigma Chi fraternity, and I hope that building is no longer standing, because I just remember it being like a giant garbage can. It was a frat house, right? It was a frat house. But his son, now Kalani Panoke, I don't know if any of you know Kalani, my nephew, is now a student here at Utah State University. One of our executives, Robert Bischoff, who has become a dear friend and colleague of mine, lives in the area. I believe he also serves on your board, Robert Bischoff. And so there's so many connections. And my dear friend, sister, colleague, and partner, Dr. Susan Madsen, runs the Utah Women in Leadership Project out of USU now as well. And so I feel at home here. Also, my original home is the beautiful islands of Hawaii. Have any of you been to Hawaii before? Okay, awesome. I am just getting back from a 2-week trip on the island of Maui and then Oahu. And so I bring to all of you the mana and spirit that exists there in the Hawaiian Islands. I also want to offer acknowledgement and prayers for our ohana on the island of Maui. That have faced the unimaginable. It was very deep devastation that our families and friends have experienced there recently due to the wildfires. And so we are well on our way towards their rebuilding and recovery process. So thank you for all of your prayers and support for them as well. I wanted to start off with 3 things: identity, creativity, and poetry. Now, I work at a bank right now. And I don't necessarily identify as a banker. When people find out I work at Zions Bank, they think I can process their small business loan. Trust me, you do not want me processing your small business loan. We just define capital at Zions Bank in 3 forms. We've got human capital, our people, social capital, the trust and relationships that we build amongst our teams, with our clients, and ultimately in the communities that we serve. And then thirdly, financial capital, our monetary investments. So my role at the bank is really that human capital and social capital piece. And I would argue women just do a phenomenal job in building social capital. That's relationships and trust that we build with one another. And so I really want you to think deeply about that. So identity, I don't necessarily identify as a banker, but somehow I now work at a bank. I don't necessarily identify as a poet, but poetry has become a very therapeutic process for me. And so I'd like to start off my remarks with a poem. And I'm at the age where I need glasses. So, and as Kristen mentioned, the theme today is I listen, I learn, I lead. So I'm going to invite all of you here to listen to this poem, because I'm going to have you share with your neighbor what resonated with you. I described it, or I titled it, I Am Money. And I was invited to share some remarks around my relationship with money. And so all of us pursuing careers in business, money plays a critical role in your success. So I encourage you again to invite you to think about your relationship with money. In the beginning, God created comedy. And somewhere in his creative journey, he also created irony, which today I define as me standing here talking about money. I'm very green when it comes to money. And when I say green, I mean rookie in the money industry. I don't necessarily identify as a banker, but somehow I now work at a bank. I don't necessarily identify as a poet, but every once in a while, poetry becomes a part of my a very therapeutic process for me. I do, however, identify as a creative. And every day I stand all amazed at the circles I find myself in. For someone who studied political science to now leading conversations in banking and finance, now that's what I call ironic, because I failed economics. Not really, but it just rhymed, went with the poem. My passion has always been to pursue a career in politics. So where I sit today, I call God's greatest comedic remix. So if God created comedy, he also created money, because money is what led to today's convening. Isn't that funny how money somehow works its way into everything? Regardless of God's intentions, I move forward with limited comprehension of all the talk around deposits, assets, capital markets, venture capital investment, Series A, B, C, D, E, F, G funding. A lot of this is still a foreign language to me. Full transparency, I still find myself Googling financial terms in our executive committee management meetings. As unique as it may be for me to disclose my insecurities related to my current incompetencies in the financial services industry, there is a silver lining. And that is knowing that we are in the business of relationship building. And that is a skill I learned on Capitol Hill. Human capital, social capital, financial capital. I may not be the go-to person to invest on how to invest your money, but I need to be, because I can rely on the experience of my colleagues. Rather than compete with their area of expertise, instead we explore ways in which our strengths can be complementary. That strategy speaks to the value of diversity. What does diversity have to do with money? Nothing or everything? That is a question for you to contemplate, because it's not just up to me. Defining diversity is the responsibility of your entire team. My strength is knowing how to invest in people and communities. That is the value I bring to any table at which I may be sitting. And in 2023, human capital and social capital is more than just a thing. Some would argue it is everything. Because any industry without trust between its institutions and community runs the risk of facing the same fate as Signature and SVB. One thing I've learned building my career in banking is that if we define money as opportunity and learn how to use it properly, we can maximize our ability to feed our seed of creativity. If we define money as creativity, its power lies in its divinity. And that would mean that I am money and money is me. If I am money and money is me, then that means that I am opportunity. And I have the power to monetize my pure potentiality. If I am money and money is me, that means that the source of my wealth is sitting in my library. Do any of you remember that green book called The Giving Tree? One of my favorite children's books. I love that book, not just because it was green, but because the message really resonated with me. It essentially outlined the formula for all of us to be happy. A young boy develops a relationship with a tree. And at one point, he says to the tree, "I want some money. Can you give me some money?" The tree generously replies, "I have only leaves and apples. Take my apples, boy, and sell them in the city. Then you will have money and you will be happy." In the end, that boy milked that tree dry. Why doesn't everyone ever talk about that? That tree would give, and the boy would take, and the tree still found joy and happiness in playing a small part in that boy's joy. I don't know about all of you, but that tree is better than me. Can someone please explain to me how all that giving benefited the tree? Did the tree ever ask itself, what's in it for me? Or is that just my natural human instincts? After hours of pondering, I now see the connection between the tree and money. As much as I want to say, forget that boy, find a friend who is going to give you reciprocity. Invest in a relationship where you can at least build some equity, where the opportunity for liquidity is timely and you don't have to sell all of your leaves and apples for the price of someone else's happiness. Every day I aspire to be more like that tree because that tree's identity is rooted in giving. And giving is the secret to building a healthy relationship with money. I guess money really can grow on trees if their roots are nourished by creativity and the art of giving. As we embark upon our own personal journey, may we each know that in order for us to be happy, we must find joy in the simplicity of simply being. I invite you now to repeat after me. I am money, and money is me. Thank you. So I invite you to turn to your neighbor and just share one thing that resonated with you in that poem. Awesome. Thank you. When do you want me to wrap? About 11:05. So about 15 minutes. Would that work? Yeah. Cool. Kristen? Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap up your conversations. We'll have more time after the breakouts to continue these conversations, but I hope all of you had at least one thing in that delivery that resonated with you on a deeper level. And I encourage you to continue to thinking about your relationship with money. Now, going back to our theme, I listen, I learn, I lead. It's very important that as a leader, your leadership is developed in that order. The greatest listeners become the greatest leaders. The greatest learners become the greatest leaders. And the greatest leaders are listeners and learners first. So, starting with I listen, curiosity and creativity. I want to think about who do you listen to? Who do you respect? Who are your go-to people in your life? I have a number, identify as being a creative, as I mentioned earlier. Some of the most impactful global creatives that have inspired me throughout my life and my career are number one, Nelson Mandela, who was a creative in politics. The second one is Bob Marley. He was a creative in music. The third one is Jay-Z. He is a creative in business. And the fourth one is Dave Chappelle, a creative in comedy. So all of these people inspire me. And when I share that list in groups, especially audiences that are majority women, they're like, well, there's not one woman on that list. That doesn't mean that women don't inspire me. I will encourage you to seek to expose yourself and learn from people who are different from you. Right? They all may be men. They all may be a different race, ethnic background than I have, but I see them as a creative, right? You'll reach a level where we can see beyond what meets the eye and really get to the heart of the value that each one of us bring to whatever table we may be sitting at. Now, I learn. Okay, I want you to think about all the different ways in which you learn. And identity is a key piece of your experience as a learner because you are going to learn through the lens of your identity. Now, I identify as Native Hawaiian, Filipino, Chinese, Irish, Spanish descent. I have a daughter who is half Black, and in my extended family, essentially every race, ethnicity, multicultural background, religious affiliation, political association, sexual orientation, and gender identity is represented. So in my family, my ohana, I was essentially conditioned to do this work. And I would argue all of your families are probably equally as diverse. So you were placed in that family for a reason, to learn from all those different perspectives and experiences in a way that will create a unique perspective and experience for you as a leader. Culture. Thinking about culture, the different spaces in which you operate in. Think about how you would describe the culture here at Utah State University. Now, I have built my career primarily in Salt Lake City and Washington, D.C. Vastly different cultures. Both have strengths and opportunities for growth and have different value systems. Back in Washington, D.C., I would describe the value system there as wealth, power, and influence. Here in Utah, I would describe the values in our community as faith, family, community. Very different ways of leading, different ways of building community, and different ways of investing in our next generation, like all of you here today. What's beautiful about that diversity is that those values are not mutually exclusive. We can encompass all of them into our own leadership capabilities and attributes. And the third piece, I lead. Going back to power and influence. Now, this is a question I like to ask audiences, thinking about power, right? Being an American, the United States of America is seen as a world power, right? Think about how would you define the word power. Now, which sector of our society would you say holds the most power? Is it government? Is it corporate? Or is it the people? Okay? How many of you say government? Okay, we are definitely not in the political science department or the government affairs department. How many of you would say corporate? Okay, we're definitely at the business school. And I would wholeheartedly agree with that too. How many of you say people? Oh my gosh, I love young people. And it's usually that differentiation. Overwhelming majority of all audiences that I've asked this question to over the past couple of years say corporate. Overwhelming majority. And then it's always the young people. They're still so optimistic, and I love it so much. Say the people. And if we look at people, they make up every institution and sector of our society, but also identifying where a lot of power exists in our country. We are in a capitalist society. It's in the private sector, which every single one of you will pursue a career down that path. So imagine taking the value that you have as a leader and channeling it through the sector in our society that holds the most power. I want you to think about the deep impact that all of you have to make here in whatever community you decide to build your career. That is powerful. So I encourage you to utilize that. And in closing, leading is trusting yourself. One of the biggest differentiators I've seen between men and women as it pertains to leadership is confidence, right? So many of my colleagues are nodding their heads. I want each one of you as young women to know that you are capable. I want you to believe in yourself. I spent a lot of years in Washington helping women get elected to public office. And the biggest differentiator was that belief in self. It was personal empowerment. Before you can even convince anyone else to believe in you and vote for you, you have to believe in yourself. So I want you to repeat after me. I am really good at what I do. I am really good at what I do. In fact, I am the best at what I do. In fact, I am the best at what I do. Because no one does it like I do. Because no one does it like I do. So I still wake up every morning and say that to myself in the mirror. And it helps, right? We have to exude that self-confidence in order to build that trust with those around us. Now, in closing, time to close, right? Okay, I'm gonna have everyone stand. And since I started my remarks with a poem, we're gonna close with another poem. And I hope you guys can see the slide Because guess what? You guys are so special. I wrote a poem just for you. So I'm going to recite the line, and then I'm going to have you repeat after me. So, in the beginning, God created me. In the beginning, God created me. And in his creative process, he also planted seeds. And in his creative process, he also planted seeds. Seeds of listening, of learning, and of leading. Seeds of listening, of learning, and of leading. All gifts I hope to develop and give back to my community. All gifts I hope to develop and give back to my community. Part of my journey is to become an Aggie. Part of my journey is to become an Aggie. Okay, you just say that like you mean it, okay? Are you guys proud to be Aggies? Yeah, let's hear it for Aggies. And carry on the legacy of Utah State University. And carry on the legacy of Utah State University. The greatest lesson I can take from She's Daring Mighty Things. The greatest lesson I can take from She's Daring Mighty Things is I am mighty and mighty is me. Is I am mighty and mighty is me. Let's hear it for all the mighty leaders in the room. Thank you so much. You may be seated. I didn't know you guys were all poets. Okay, we planted some seeds of poetry here in the room. And do we have, say, 5 minutes? Yep. Okay, 5 minutes for questions, if anyone has any questions. Thoughts, remarks? We have a microphone going around.
What would you say was your biggest adversity in your career, and how did you overcome that?
Great question. And I want to just go back to that personal empowerment piece. I think, I don't want to assume anything about anyone else, but I also have experienced that imposter syndrome when you don't necessarily think that you are as good or that you belong or that this could be the path for you. So it really took a lot of deep meditation. And if I would describe myself as 2 words, it's politics and yoga. So I'm like a political and news junkie, and then I'm also a yogi. But the time that I spend in the yoga room is that meditative, that quiet time and space to really just balance myself and really kind of explore internally what are my desires? What makes me happy? What brings me joy? What are my special gifts that I have to offer the world? And then you focus on those, you develop those as you build your leadership path and journey. So I hope that answered your question, but yeah, a lot of it is internal work. And then over time, it will show up externally in how you lead. Thank you for the question.
Hi, my name's Andrea, and I work at a bank and identify as a banker.
Yay! You're a real banker.
Yeah. But I did want to ask what types of things you're working on in your day-to-day work to promote, all of the many things that you're working on.
That is a great question. A lot of this work is done through conversations. And a lot of people don't see conversations as action, but it is absolutely action. It's really shifting mindsets. It's exposing people to different points of view, to different experiences, and that is what moves the needle. It's not one big, splashy, high-profile event that's going to make the difference, although those do help. But it's consistent, again, learning and listening and continuing the conversation that shifts mindsets, eliminates biases, and then ultimately moves the needle. One of my areas of expertise is unconscious bias training. And I always talk about like what you see. It's like your perspective, you've got your perception leads to your experience, and then ultimately your decision making. And that is the difference between any other employee and a leader, is their power to make decisions. And so you always want to take a look at, examine what influences are going into that decision-making process. right? Are we including everybody? Are we thinking thoughtfully and intentionally about how our decisions, our policies, our recruiting process, or whatever it may be, is going to impact the entire community? And so I hope that answers your question. Yes.
Immediately after graduating, what would you say was your like next step? What was like, yeah, what did you do?
Great question. Experience. And President Anderson and I were just talking about this. There's that classroom. So I'm always thinking about from classroom to the boardroom, right? And so taking what you've learned here at this higher education institution and applying it to the real world. And I love how USU is doing it. It's giving you that hybrid experience. So it's not just teaching you about different theories and different experiences and perspectives that different leaders have experienced and applied to the private sector, but it's actually putting those to use. That practical application is key. And I would argue that's what the business sector values. Obviously all of us here value higher education, but really matters is how you can apply that, right? And so really thinking about how can you apply the ideas, the skills that you have learned here throughout your degree into the real world. And I also encourage entrepreneurial kind of endeavors, right? I'm a social entrepreneur by trade, so it was a difficult transition, but exciting and interesting as well, stepping into a 150-year-old institution. This year, Zions Bank celebrates 150 years in business. That is no small feat. And there are certain practices, leadership styles, business decisions that have led us to this place. And so just really thinking about that level of creativity. I'll also say, as an entrepreneur, having that mindset, I feel like accepting in a role in the private sector, I haven't necessarily had to compromise on my creative freedom. Let me say that, which is a win-win. Far too often that gets mitigated in the private sector, but I would encourage all of you who start businesses, like always pave a way for that creative and innovative aspect of doing business to stay alive. Cultivate that, nourish that, and you will succeed.
I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know for me, when you were talking about like the giving tree story, like I know for me, I love to just give and give and give and give, and maybe to the point where I'm not like taking care of myself.
Yeah.
So I guess how do you give all you can, like the giving tree, while still taking care of yourself and like your family and stuff?
Oh my gosh, I resonate with that on so many levels because I'm also a giver to the point where it can be a fault. And so that's one thing that the yoga practice helps me do, like balance myself, right? And one thing that's important to do, and I would say in my experience, women, oh my gosh, generally are givers. And we generally want to serve others. And oftentimes serving ourselves becomes secondary. And that is going to impact everyone around you. And so one thing that I found myself saying oftentimes is self-care, self-love is not selfish. In fact, it is the key to self-sustaining, right? And the longer we can stay in the game, the more successful our work is going to be, our families are going to be, and we're going to be a better support to those around us. So that self-care is so key. So setting those boundaries for yourself and being unafraid to say no. I get a lot of invitations to do things like this, to join this board and do that training. And yep, Robin, others here are nodding their heads. And so you really have to assess your own capacity and do not feel guilty for saying no if you are unable to fulfill all the requests that are coming your way. Let's do final question. Okay.
Earlier, you mentioned that you are working in your dream job, and you are now the keynote speaker. So in a lot of ways, you've, quote, made it. How do you battle complacency?
I made it to this stage. Sorry, what was the question?
How do you avoid complacency?
Ooh, that is such a great question. Always looking for the next thing is so important. One thing that I always try to do is surround myself with people who are better than me, either smarter than me or more experienced than me. And that holds true for the role I serve at the bank. I report directly to our president and CEO. His name is Scott Anderson. And he's kind of iconic and probably the world's greatest champion for women. And so I think I'm in good hands in terms of always constantly being challenged and pushed to pursue the next greatest thing. And just always cultivating that seed of learning, that curiosity. You're never done. Some of you may be graduating either this spring or even the following year, but never give up that curiosity and that seed for learning. It is a lifelong process, and that will keep you moving on that path. But complacency is like death to me. And so I'm so glad that you brought that up. I encourage all of you to consider assessing yourself. When do you find yourselves there? Because you will get there. But when you do see yourself there, making sure you know how to get out of it. And again, just surrounding yourself with people who inspire you, who are going to support you, motivate you, and take you to the next level. So.
All right, join me in thanking Sui Lang.
Thank you so much.
All right, this is a taste
Truly an honor.
of Cache Valley.
Oh my gosh.
So
I love it already.
deliciousness.
It tastes great.
Amazing. Thank you
Already.
so much.
Thank you.
All right, and if you sit down.